Alright, so this video is going to be about synthetic division with imaginary zeros. Basically, when we solve using synthetic division, we're going to get imaginary zeros. Now remember, if I don't give you a zero, use your calculator, find one zero, and then use that to synthetically divide. And then what's left over is what you're going to have to use to solve the remaining zeros. So I'm starting with this polynomial x cubed plus 3x squared plus x plus 3. I'm giving you a zero, x equals negative 3. So now I gave one to you, so you don't have to use your calculator. But remember, what we're going to do is synthetic division actually helps us factor. So I need to know what my factor is to begin with. So if my zero is x equals negative 3, then my factor actually was x plus 3. Remember, you set your factor equal to 0 to find that value, x equals negative 3. Right? So my factor is x plus 3. Now we're going to use our 0 value, which is negative 3, and we're going to use that to synthetically divide. So remember, we're going to look and make sure that we have all our values. I have a cubed, squared, linear term, and a constant term. No placeholders needed, so use your coefficients, 1, 3, 1, and 3. Remember, drop the 1 down. Outside numbers get multiplied, inside numbers add, and just keep repeating that process until we finally finish and exhaust all options. Now remember, we already told you that this is a 0, so your remainder should be equal to 0 at the end. All right? And you're going to see that when I do that, there's my remainder. My remainder is equal to 0. So that's good. That's exactly what we wanted. Now what's left over, that 1, 0, 1, that is actually the coefficients for the polynomial that's left over after we factor the x plus 3 out. So I'm going to factor out my x plus 3. And remember, work your way backwards from the remainder. That's an x, that's x squared. So I'm missing that x term, not going to write it. I'm left with x squared plus 1. So I factored an x plus 3 out of my original polynomial, and what was left over is that x squared plus 1. So that x squared plus 1, that's where my remaining zeros are going to be located. The first one I already found was negative 3. The remaining two, because remember, it's a degree of 3, I need 3 zeros, the remaining two are located right there. Now, the two options that you can do with this is either use the quadratic formula or you can solve. This is not needed, the quadratic formula is not needed because I'm missing my middle term. I only have one variable, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that x squared plus 1, set it equal to 0, and start solving. First step, subtract 1, so x squared is equal to negative 1. Second step, square root, so x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 1. Now remember, I is equal to the square root of negative 1, so this becomes plus or minus I. So now our zeros, you can see that we actually have 3 of them. My first one I gave you was negative 3. If I don't give it to you, use your calculator, find it, use synthetic division. And then your other ones, your imaginary ones, are I and negative I. So remember, we need to have three zeros, whether they're real, double, imaginary. You need to be able to have that stuff. We found them, we factored, we solved, we now found all our zeros using synthetic division.